Remember your three key main factors to making kefir. The grain ratio is not talked about enough in the community. The temperature changes aren't talked enough about in the community. The amount of times are not talked about. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to do an update off the last video. Some people seem to be confused of what was going on. Basically, I'm not home a lot. I don't have very much time to deal with the kefir. Sometimes I may not be able to do the kefir for a couple days. So I can't just leave it out on the counter. That does not work. So here, it's summertime. It's very warm, much warmer than normal. The last video wasn't great. I was trying to do something not normal to try to show an example. I almost didn't upload it because I didn't like the way it turned out, but I just got it done anyway. I kind of knew it would look bad. And then, of course, the Donna Schwinnick Karens had to come and tell me I didn't know what I was doing and I'm doing it all wrong and all this. So I'm going to go over a few things here. Now, these still have not been left out at room temperature. They've been only in the refrigerator for about a little over a day, day and a half. About a day and a half since I strained them. I was getting it to where I was getting whey pockets in the refrigerator even within a day because I have an extremely high grain ratio of about 50% grain in the milk, which is a very high ratio. So my refrigerator was at a cold setting of 4, so I increased that up to 4.5, and now the kefir is not starting to ferment and get whey pockets because the refrigerator is colder now. Cold enough with my outside temperatures that it's keeping the inside of my refrigerator cold enough to keep them from fermenting. So that's what's going on there. If your refrigerator isn't cold enough, they'll still ferment pretty quick, especially with high grain ratios. 50% is not recommended typically. I use this during the winter where it works really good because when it's cold in the house, it can take a long time and I want to speed it up because I only have a few hours to deal with it. Like I said, a lot of us guys, we're out working all day. We don't have all day to be home babysitting our kefir. We're not all, Sally homemakers. We may work 12 hours a day. We may be too tired when we get home to do the kefir. We might have not been able to get things done. Schedules change, temperatures change, diets change by the day. So those are some of the reasons why I do kefir this way. Because I don't have time to sit at home and babysit it all day. And I might not be available to take care of it. And if I don't come home, then it'll just be absolutely separated and ruined by the time I get home. So this enables me to control the timing to fit with my schedule. So number one, on washing jars. Do not wash the jars out very often. Typically, I will have one washed, rinsed very well, dried out, and then I'll swap the containers. You don't want to wash one right away and still have some soap residue in there and put grains in that. Soap, any antibacterials will kill the grains. Chlorine will hurt the grains. So make sure your jars are well rinsed with no soap residue or water left in them if you're going to do your jars regularly. But I typically can go, this one's been going a long time, almost a month, and it's starting to get a little bit dirty. This other one's been about a month, but it stays much more clean because I have a lot more room in that container. I'm about to switch this one over. When I have them in the refrigerator all the time, they've been sealed up with the lids because I'm not going to leave it open in the refrigerator. So if they've been sealed up too long, or if they've separated out to whey and they've sat in the whey for a long time, that's when I'll let the grains get a little bit of air, what I call air, letting them air out for a few minutes while I'm straining them to make sure oxygen gets in there. That helps keep your yeast healthy. I typically will only do that if they've been sealed up for a long time or if I had whey set up for a while that I didn't get a chance to change. A lot of times in the refrigerator or when I have the lids on, I'll check them about halfway through the day or whenever I'm around. I'll take the lid off, let a little bit of oxygen in, put the lid back on, and then shake them up a little bit and keep them in the refrigerator. If it's not getting done in time, then I can just leave it out on the counter. This will be starting to change here within a half hour, 15 minutes. These will start to get whey pockets and start solidifying. Since it's so warm out today, I don't really want to let it go that long. I'm going to strain them a little bit early That way, when I drink it later, it won't be too separated, because it will keep accelerating at a similar rate as it was fermenting when you had the grains in. So higher grain ratios, the second ferment, which isn't really a second ferment, even in the refrigerator, it will still be fermenting after you remove the grains. I do cover these if I let them sit out. I'll cover them with, whatever you got, cheesecloth, paper towel, just on there like that is just fine. Since I use the high grain ratio, I typically don't need to leave them out for more than an hour or two, 3 maybe if I go down to a lower ratio. I have the higher ratio right now just because the grains have just grown so much, and I only get so much milk. I get raw milk, so I don't have an unlimited supply. I got to drive about 25 minutes to pick it up once a week, and I get between 2 and 3 gallons. So sometimes I get 2 gallons, and then I end up drinking it too fast, and I'm almost out of milk before I'm going to be going back up to get more. So then I have to kind of slow down my kefir, and I might have to keep some in the refrigerator for a couple days till I get more milk. So I use this really high grain ratio because I can. It makes it fast. And I'm also showing you guys an extreme example of how much the grain ratio can make a difference. So when the heat is on, using the same ratio as when it's colder out is going to increase your fermentation time. So in the summer, when things start changing, your temperatures change. Every week your grains are growing, so that's constantly changing your ratio. Once it gets hot and things are going too fast, you have a couple options. You can reduce your grain ratio by using more milk or removing some grains, or keep them in a colder temperature, like keep them in the refrigerator, and then you only have to take them out for a short amount of time, whatever your schedule allows. So in the summertime, sometimes what I like to do with my raw milk is just backslop the kefir into the milk. So basically it's kefir flavored milk. I'll put about, some or up to a quarter of kefir, and then I'll fill the rest with raw milk. And I typically don't put it in the refrigerator. It'll just kind of sit out until lunchtime in my lunch bag. And then by lunchtime, it'll start to ferment the milk, and it'll prevent your raw milk from possibly getting an off taste. Depends on how your milk is fermenting. You have to test your raw milk by itself to see how it ferments alone, to know what type of interaction it has with your kefir and then the result in the end product. So after you get if you're getting raw milk, obviously you do want to test your raw milk, leave it out in warm conditions above 70 degrees on its own, see what it ferments to. If it ferments with an off taste or with a bad taste, that gives you a sign that there's some issues with your farm's production process. There could be slight contaminations in the milking equipment, etc., that will cause the milk to have an off taste. Like for instance, if a small piece of manure was dropped in your milk, you may have it cold in the refrigerator and drink it and not notice. But if you set it out on the counter and let it ferment, and then after it starts to ferment, you go and smell it or taste it, it will smell bad. It will basically smell like manure. So fermenting your milk, your raw milk, will give you insight into the quality and pureness of your raw milk. Even more than laboratory testing. They only test certain things. This will give you a lot more insight as to what's going on with your milk. Okay, I'm going to have to give you guys an update on what happened with these kefirs here. I forgot. So yeah, since I was saying I thought I was going to run out of raw milk and it was pretty hot out, so I was going to delay these. Actually, I got real busy. I wasn't thirsty later, so I wasn't going to have any kefir yesterday. It was pretty warm. But a cold front moved in. Last night it dropped into the 50s, and it's only 70 degrees here today, which is a major reduction in temperature. But yesterday what I did, since I thought I was going to run out of milk, these were in the refrigerator for a day, and they were starting to get a couple pockets. So, and I left the levels low on milk. I was down to about there on milk, because I was getting low. But once I realized I was probably going to have enough, but I wasn't going to have time to do those last night, I went ahead and added fresh milk into these jars. So I added about that much fresh milk, and then about this much fresh milk over here. And then I shook them up, put them in the refrigerator. What that does is extend the amount of time I'll be able to let them ferment. And so today, with it being, it was in reality a day and a half. Now, after a day, I added a little bit more milk to extend the time. Now with the reduction in temperature, it's got really cold last night and it's pretty cool here today. I dropped by 10 degrees in my house. So what we're looking at here is I left these out for 1 hour now. I've left them out for 1 hour. You can see I'm starting to get a little bit of a whey pocket here in this one, which is not completely necessary. You don't have to get whey pockets, depending on your timing and how you like your kefir. But this right here is pretty good. I'm going to drink it pretty much right away today. This has a decent amount of thickness on the top. I don't know if you can tell that. It's medium thickness. I don't really have time to let them go anymore. This is going to be a really good kefir. In the summertime, I really don't like to have a lot of whey. I don't need it to be I don't want it too acidic. When you're really hot out and you're sweating a lot and stuff, having a lot of acidic stuff can not be the greatest. So these have been in the refrigerator for a day. I added a little bit more milk. Then they were in there for another half a day. Temperature changes. I had to let them sit out. So they've been sitting out for about an hour. Well, exactly 1 hour. And about every 15 minutes I checked on them and gave them a little swirl or a shake or a swirl. We'll go ahead and strain these quick, see what it looks like. Now this is the kind of thing that's just going to happen on a daily basis. Life changes, temperatures change. There is no such thing as a recipe for making kefir. It doesn't work for everyone. Everything that they say is just not going to work. After about 30 days, you start to have problems because everybody has different conditions, different temperatures, different amounts of grain growth. All of that's going to affect your kefir and your timing. So remember, you judge the future by the past. So since I knew the situations and how it was warm, it was getting done fast, but now it's cold, I know it's going to have to take longer. I could have left that out longer, but like I said, I don't want it to be too fermented today. And that's all your choice and your preference. This is going to be a nice bubbly kefir, good for summertime. A light kefir. Turns out real foamy because of the seal and the high ratio. Now also, of course, I do scrape out my container. I just do it off camera because I'm filming this with one hand. So I scrape it out like that so you got good visibility and not a buildup around the outside. I just don't have time to let it go. I don't want it to be over fermented. And I'm running out of time here. It's not a big deal. You don't have to let the kefir go to any certain amount. You can take it whenever you want it, depending on what you like. Yeah, this is a nice bubbly, foamy kefir. Now, if you're like taking this to work and it's going to be sitting out, you have to transport it in and it might be sitting outside and you're waiting till half the day. This is good because it's going to continue to keep fermenting, but you don't want it to be too separated, so you pull it a little bit earlier so later it's not so separated. I'm drinking this typically right away. Right now, I'm off work today, so it's still going to be a great summertime kefir. Remember your three key main factors to making kefir: the grain ratio, amount of grains in your milk, the temperature of the fermentation conditions, and the amount of time that you're leaving it out. All three of those interact equally. You can change any one and manipulate the others to come out with the same outcome. If you have very few grains and a lot of milk, you're going to need more time. If it's very hot out, you're going to need less time. If it's cold out, you're going to need more time. If you have a lot of grains, you're going to need less time. And if it's hotter, you'll need even less time. So all of those things will interact with each other. And there's a combination. You can mix around the numbers whichever way, and you can still come up with the same result. It's just a matter of what you can control and what you can't control. And remember, the past predicts the future with kefir. So just remember what happened and adjust as the day goes. Nobody will be able to have the exact same result unless you do it in a standardized method that I tried to put out there, which is a 1/3 grain ratio, 70 degrees. It's going to be 3 hours out, the rest of the time in the refrigerator. If you can get those right, you will get a standardized procedure. But most people have different amounts of grains, and the grain ratio is not talked about enough in the community. The temperature changes aren't talked enough about in the community. The amount of times are not talked about enough in the community. You get a leave your grains out for 24 to 72 hours, 24 to 48 hours until you get separation. Well, that's pretty broad and random without taking into consideration the other three main factors. So good luck, guys. And I don't know if you can see that, but since I've strained this out, this jar is warm and everything, and the kefir is all getting warmed up. You can see it's starting to get a little bit of whey pockets forming just in less than a half an hour of sitting out. Very small amount. So she's getting even thicker. It's thickening up. You can see the foamy top. So there's no one way to kefir. It's about doing what works for you in your schedule and for the type of kefir that you like. But if you don't understand the three main factors, then you're pretty much lost just guessing and hoping. So you can have success or you can have luck. So in order to slow the progression of the ferment after you pull the grains out, you either need to drink it right away or put it in the refrigerator. Or if it's very hot out, you may need to put it in the freezer for a minute to get the container cooled down quick, and then transfer it to the refrigerator. That will really slow down the fermentation and the second ferment time. It's not a second ferment. It's just as it's sitting, it will separate more. If you have the higher grain ratio you have, the faster the secondary fermentation is going to take off. So that's just for FYI. I think I've covered everything I'm going to cover today. So thanks for watching. You guys have a wonderful day. Enjoy your kefir. Happy kefiring.